All right.
Hey
We here.
guys, it's your
Hi
two poly
guys.
chicks again. And of course, today we're going to talk about nothing else other than the Walz Vance debate, right?
Walz Vance.
Um,
Walz Vance.
that is what we were watching yesterday. And I'm sorry, we're like, I'm just like discombobulated because
Guys, because
I'm always,
I just ran in, as you can see, and she's running out. So we're trying to get this
yes.
in the news cycle because you
And the
know how the
funniest
news
thing is,
cycle is.
I'm always running. I'm always wearing workout clothes, but I barely. I can't talk. But I'm always wearing workout clothes, but I barely get to work out. So that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. And I'm just running in. She's running out.
Yes,
And I'm hungry.
yes,
So let's get this
such
party
is
going.
life. Yeah.
All right.
So with the Waltz and Vance debate, I'm just gonna say it was very, very refreshing. It was so good to see it, a good clean debate with no name calling, sticking to the topics. It, it was just refreshing. And actually I was surprised to see that they were agreeing on a few things too. So I was just like,
Mhm.
wow, an actual normal debate. So the return to normalcy was so refreshing. And I have to say they agreed on a lot. They agreed on so many different topics, and they were shaking their head at what they were
Yeah.
saying. And I think their their points were, how do we implement these changes? Even though we agree that there's things that need to be changed, like on the border, like with the housing and things of that nature, with healthcare, how do we
Hmm.
implement that? That's where the differences came, and that's how it should be. That's how a normal, healthy debate should look, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Hmm. I do agree that they agreed on a lot, but I don't know if it was just me and where I came in on it, but I felt like Walls was the one that kind of shifted it because it seemed like Vance was just like kind of attacking Kamala and like saying little things like taking these little jabs, taking these little jabs, taking these little jabs. And then it was more like Wall saying, I actually agree with my what do you call him? Whatever he is. I actually agree with him on this.
Own it,
I actually agree
whatever
with
he
him.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I actually agree with him on this. I actually agree with him on that. And it kind of like lowered the temperature a little bit. I felt like that's what I just felt
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, and I mean, and it happened on the same side where Vance was talking about, no one should die when it came to the women's reproductive health and, things of
Yeah.
that nature. It was just like they were in agreement more so than they were. And even though he was attacking Kamala, Vice President Harris, even though he was attacking her, it wasn't a name calling. He was
No, no,
attacking
no,
her
no, no.
policies. He
It
was
was just
attacking,
tagging her with names. It was
right,
labeling her.
but
Yeah.
right, but it was more so on her policy. He wasn't calling her
Right, right,
dumb.
right,
He wasn't
right,
calling her an
right. No,
idiot.
no, no,
He
no, no,
wasn't
no, no.
saying she was a comrade or a
No. He
communist.
just kept
He
calling
was
her border
attacking.
czar. He was like border czar, or I don't
Right,
know,
but
like
it wasn't. It
yeah,
was based on her policies, not based
yeah.
on her. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of congestion, but it was based
Mhm.
on her policies more so than who she is as a woman, like her
Right. No, no, no,
looks or
no, no. It was
anything like that.
mainly,
So,
which is one of the points I wanted to talk about. It was mainly tagging her as president.
mhm.
All powerful president. She could control the border. She's got this war that she could have done something about. She's censored free speech, he said at one point, like all these powers that she has as vice president. So they were
Yep.
kind of like tagging her in the economy stuff, like and tagging her with the problems. Like it's
Hmm.
not Biden. So I don't even think he said Biden's name once. I don't. Maybe he did, and I didn't hear it. But it was basically tagging her with it.
Actually, I didn't think I don't remember him saying Biden. I don't
Yeah.
remember if he did. He said Biden Harris. I don't remember any of them saying Biden. Now
Right.
that you mentioned that,
Yeah.
yeah. And the key is what we've said before is, as the vice president, he said that sounds good, but she didn't do it. But can you implement any of your good ideas when you aren't the boss? So we've had issues and
He's
things
not
where
the
we're like, hey, this
boss.
is a good idea. And you push it up to the boss, and one of two things can happen. They can ignore it, maybe three things. They can use it as their own, or it just gets filed away. Like it just, you
Right,
cannot implement something when you're not the boss, can you? I
right.
mean, maybe
They
you can.
take
Very,
credit for it. No, you no, right? Let me in on that. I've never.
I know.
We all work for idiot bosses where we felt like, oh God, I keep telling them this, or the boss is usually the
Hmm.
one making the decision that the workers have to suffer with.
Yep.
So a lot of times, especially when I was in the school system, it was like they making these changes, but the teacher has to implement it, and the teacher doesn't even agree with it, and there's not even complete buy-in. So Kamala is a politician, but she's also a worker. So she's a smart worker. She's not going to get up there and talk about Joe Biden about to lose his mind. She ain't going to do that. She's going to just be like, no, he's fine. And inside, she's like, by the way, when I was talking to him the other day, he started talking about whatever,
Yeah. I
She's
mean,
not going to
she's
throw
his
him under the bus. Yeah.
right. She's an employee of his, right?
Yes.
She's
Yeah.
she's someone that works for and under him. And of course, she wants to implement things of her own. We all have been in situations where we're like, I know how to do this better, but if the
Yeah.
boss, they have the final say. So what can you do about that? So
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
label her with all of the responsibility of the Biden Harris campaign or administration is completely wrong because I don't know anything that Pence was involved in. I mean, I'm honestly thinking I think he was put on some project, but I cannot
No,
even name it.
I don't even
So
remember what he looked like except with the fly on his head at the debate. Um, but
selective memory.
yeah, exactly. But they have to do that. I don't fault him for doing that. He has to do that because otherwise he'd have to treat her like a new candidate. And those are the ones that are refreshing and people like. And so people already are showing that they kind of leaning toward her and like her of the two. So he has to paint her with something because of everything that is going on in the country. They have to pin it somewhere. And because remember, strategically or unplanned or however it happened, they were blindsided with her being the candidate. They had already prepared this campaign against Biden. So now Biden's not running. So now you have to do something. Um,
Yep.
I know you have to go, but I wanted to talk about just a few of the points I
I have
noticed.
a
Did you
few
want to?
minutes. I
Uh,
have like a few minutes.
so I wanted to talk about just a few of the points I noticed about the campaign about the debate. Do you want to go first?
No, I mean, I really didn't take the substance of the debate. I shouldn't say didn't take the substance. I listened to a lot of how it was explained to say Tim Walz. I was afraid for him. I was nervous that he wasn't gonna
Mm,
do well against JD Vance, who's he's a debater. This is his that was his forum altogether. As you said, he kind of held his own. He was flustered in the beginning. I noticed that he was looking at the clock and and he was kind of nervous. But then as time went on, he became more,
yeah,
solid in his explanation. Even when he explained the housing issue of if you put 12% more housing into the market, the prices will go down 4%. Like just explaining certain things. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
yeah,
This health the healthcare issues and the childcare issues. So yeah, I like a lot of the talking points and how they explained it. Um,
mm-hmm,
I do like I said, Tim Walz indicated that the debate was a healthy debate, that they were going back and forth. And he's like, it's bigger than winning. When this is all
mm-hmm,
over, let's shake hands and work together. And that, oh my gosh, that's like I keep
yeah,
saying, the refreshing return to normalcy is just like,
yeah, yeah.
oh.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Normalcy, but I would push back a little bit on the idea of normalcy because he said something, JD Vance said something like, you said you weren't going to fact check. So,
that was funny.
like, where do they do that at? So that means you came in with a bunch of lies saying they're not going to fact check me, so I could just lie my butt off. That right there was ridiculous. And so I think our standard is so low now that just trying, not even answering the question, just I guess flipping around the question or turning it back on the other person or say, your mama, no, your mama. So doing it the way they did it, it wasn't an answer to the questions. It was, well, what about your candidate? Well, your candidate did this. When that wasn't the question. Like the question
Mhm.
was, how is this or this or this and this? I feel like the American people are still suffering in this new climate we have, because even though they didn't name call, they mostly didn't interrupt each other. There
Mhm.
was a mic cutoff point at one point, but even though those things happened, I still feel like we got screwed because there was a lot of failure to answer basic questions. Like it was like on one point, what was the question? They asked him, and then he flipped it back to Kamala being, she's the one that's censoring people and keeping people off. I think it was about the January 6th thing. So
Well,
it was like,
and I was going to say that was one of my notes that I had. It was
yeah,
on the certification of the election question. He started
yes,
talking about censorship, and I was like,
yes.
that's an odd answer to whether or not you would certify the election.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're in a period of time of odd answers, like
Mm-hmm.
really, really diverting from, we've seen politicians do politician type stuff where they kind of make stuff a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more inflamed or maybe exaggerate. But I mean, straight, I ain't going to answer this question. I'm just going to lob it back to you. And it's kind of what they call the straw man argument. And I know because my son was in debate, they got this straw man argument. You create this extra issue and you don't ever answer the question. So now it's like, I got to answer that. Like, I got to keep on putting out that fire, that fire, that fire. But the original question was never answered. Are you
Yep.
going to certify the election? Well, let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the fact that she wants to censor Facebook. Huh?
Yeah. And I was like, where does that fit in? That was
Yeah.
kind of weird. It
Yeah.
was definitely a weird response. And like you said, with the fact checking, if the agreement was they wouldn't fact check, then I do think that that was unfair to JD Vance to have them fact check and say, okay, well, this is what's going on. Because that is, if you agree to a specific rule, then I mean, the rule is the rule. I just, it's funny how he called it out like, oh, I thought you guys
Like
weren't going to
right
do
on
that.
that. I
So,
thought I could laugh freely. Oh
yeah,
my God,
like,
Home Alone.
oh man,
Like Home
that's a,
Alone.
yeah, it's like, wait a minute. But
Yeah.
and the most damning thing was when Tim Walz asked, excuse me, he asked, did Donald Trump lose? I'm sorry, I told you guys I have a tickle in my throat. Did Donald Trump lose? And
Oh,
he never answered the question. And Tim Walz said, I'm sorry, I'm choking
that's
away.
funny.
I have my
That's funny.
Dayquil right here.
That's
I'm not,
funny.
is that a violation of, we're
No,
not
Lord,
promoting
right?
Dayquil, but
No. She has some cough
like,
medicine,
I should
guys.
have
So,
showed it. Skip that. But I have medicine, I should say, to take after this. But he said
mm,
that was the most damning non-response ever because you can't even say that this person
yeah,
lost the election. He's not even in the White House any longer. We know
yeah,
he didn't win. We know that all
yeah.
of the court cases showed that he didn't win. But you
It's
can't
a
even say,
non-starter. It's
right, you
not a
can't even say
thing.
that. You can't, so if you can't push back on him with him on that one solid issue that everyone sees in front of them because Biden Harris is in the White House,
Wow.
then that's a problem. So
Yeah, he
I'm
just
sorry. I'm gonna stop
refused.
talking.
I, um, I think he had a great blow on that one. My only concern with that was that it was an hour into the debate or whatever. And I wonder how many people actually was still watching at that point, was still attentive, like, because after a while
Mm,
it just looks like a normal debate. So then you
yeah.
may start cooking or doing whatever you're doing and listening in the background, and then that just like blows over your head. So I just wonder about that part. In terms of Walz, he blew several questions. I was very annoyed with him, especially on the military question. You had to have prepared for that question. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
You knew they were going to ask you that. And I mean, Pete Buttigieg had prepared him. So
Hmm.
I'm like, I know you guys know that he's been hammering at you over this since you started running. You had to say to yourself, listen, it was 30 years ago. It's a few weeks different. Tiananmen Square versus whatever. I've been there so many times. I got the dates wrong. My bad. What can somebody do to you at that point?
Nothing.
Nothing. Just like you called Mr. T a, what did he call him? A commie, a Nazi, something he
Yeah.
called
All
him.
of, well, he didn't misspoke speak. You talking about JD Vance. He didn't misspeak.
Right.
He
JD
actually
Vance
meant
called,
what he said.
yeah, he called him a bunch of stuff. And I mean, I
Yeah.
would be like, well, if he's able to take back everything that he said about that guy, surely I could
Yeah.
be able to take back a date that I got wrong. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
that's the best response. I don't know why he flubbed. And not only did he flub, it was like, stop talking. It was like, don't talk anymore. He kept talking, and then he was just like, he was going like that. And I was like, oh God,
Yeah,
he's gonna die.
yeah. He didn't have a solid
Yeah,
response. It
he
was
didn't
just
look,
like whew.
yeah, he didn't look
He was
prepared. And
like,
I also think that he seemed over prepared in some other areas and like ready to answer in a certain way and not reading the room. And I just think that he didn't really attack back on some of the labels that were given to Kamala. Remember, the people that are watching, we really only care about the undecideds and the independents, right? Like that's the
hmm
ones that this debate is for. And so when you got him calling her a border czar, why don't you explain to them that how the border really works, which we'll get into later, but explain
oh yeah,
that
we
she
have an
doesn't have
episode on
all
that.
part. Yeah, we're gonna have
Yeah,
an episode on the border, but explain that how the border really works. And she does, nobody on this side of the land has all the power. He did mention Trump lying about Mexico's gonna pay for it. So I like
yeah,
that. But I
yeah.
still keep saying the same thing I keep saying. And why don't anybody mention that he pardoned the guy that stole the money for the border? Why is
No clue.
nobody mentioning the guy is literally was in jail? Was it I forgot his name. Meadows, not Meadows. I forgot his name, but he went to jail for it and Trump pardoned him. This guy
Wow.
stole the money that the taxpayers gave to the border. Why don't we mention that?
No clue. I'm like,
So
but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, overall, like I can't keep saying how refreshing I feel after that
Mm-hmm.
debate. I didn't come away with like those feelings of where are we going in this country? Like
Yeah.
and I know people hate the stiff politicians, but you want your politicians not to be liars, of course, but to have
Right.
a sense of decorum, to be leaders and to show you would never have your child follow someone who's a despicable leader. You just wouldn't.
Right.
Like if we're leaving the country for the next generation, we would never allow them to be the role models. But
and to
that
and
I
to
mean that's
not
just
and
my
we
take.
wouldn't allow our kids to lose at a baseball game and kick up dirt and say I refuse to leave. We wouldn't let
Yep.
our kids do that, act a mess at that. So I agree with you. What I was laughing at, I just think I know we don't want them to like do slander or anything, but when he's saying the people can't afford this, JD Vance is like the people can't afford this, the economy's so bad. So then why is it that your candidate has peddled Bibles, sneakers, and watches to people who can't afford it? Now this watch is like $100,000 now that he's
Yeah.
trying to sell. He's 100 or whatever, $200 sneakers. Why is he peddling all his money to people that are so broke they can't eat bacon?
Well, he's pandering to the rich. You know that. I mean, the tax cuts,
That's
a
that
lot of
would
the
be the
things are
point.
pandering to the
Yeah,
rich. So he's not thinking about you or I, because I'm not buying a 100,000. I barely buy $100 watch. I don't even know the last
exactly.
time I
A
bought a watch,
thousand dollars,
honestly. So,
nothing, nothing. A $20 watch. So my question
yeah,
is would be then you don't really care about the people that you're trying to say you care about because you're still trying to get
yeah,
all this running for president is grift. That's all it is. It's just grift. All you're trying to do is stay out of prison and make as much money as you can just in case you don't win. So I like the moderators. I will give a shout out to the moderators. I think they moved it along. I think they stuck to. They
yeah,
didn't even because with the Kamala debate, they did show the evidence show that Trump spoke way more, like by several minutes, because he kept hammering until they finally just let him finish his thought. But these
yeah,
two moderators was like, nah, son, and they cut the mic. So I like that.
yeah,
I really did like that. I thought that was,
yeah.
they were way better to me. They were better.
Yeah, I
Um,
like them. They were serious, and they seemed like they didn't have a dog in the fight, aside from the fact that
exactly.
they pointed out the Haitians were legally here. So,
Yes.
I mean,
So that was the fact
that's,
check, right? That was the
yeah,
fact
that
check.
was the fact check. And that was like, wait a minute. Yes, they're
Some
legally here. But
little
I know we're pressed for time. I'm pressed for
yeah.
time. Like she said, she's just running in. I'm running out. Did you have
Yeah.
any closing things? I mean, I think I
Just
took
a
all
few
my
couple of
notes.
things. I think he's Walz. I know they're not going to debate again, but he spoke to me a little too fast.
Okay.
Um, it was like so you got to remember. I mean, I like that grandpa kind of thing he did. I kind of like that.
Mhm.
They had this thing on who you think won. Um, I think based on the fact that to me, Walz didn't answer questions a lot. A few of the questions I wish he would, like family medical leave. I think they were asking him about how long should you give. There was questions and they just both, to me, they both went off on tangents. JD Walz blew the question on abortion. He blew questions on the family medical leave as well. He has to kind of cover up for his candidate. He can't like, he can't like say he's crazy. He's got to keep with him. Overall, in my opinion, it was a stalemate. I don't know what you would say.
I think Walls won because, like I said, my expectation for him was a little lower than it would have been. And JD
Mm-hmm.
Vance is so well spoken that I
Yeah,
felt like
yeah.
he was just gonna like overshadow Tim Walls's shine, and he didn't. And then, like I said, when I actually listened to some of the answers that Tim Walls gave as far as how to implement certain things, especially the housing, when you add this amount with you'll have this lower cost, and it just makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. We actually, my husband and I had a conversation about how you adding more demand or adding more product, it lessens the demand,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you have to
Supply and
leave
demand.
less,
Yeah,
right?
supply and demand.
So that whole it just I believe, and a lot of people, a lot of the polls did show that Tim Walz
Yeah,
won,
they
and I think
are
part of it
showing. Yeah,
was
they are showing. A lot of people are saying he
overwhelming because
won,
of
but to
his the
me,
lack, right?
uh, to me, the only reason why I said stalemate because I think JD Vance kind of accomplished what he had to do. He gained a lot of points with people. He seemed normal, and that's something he's not like. He's not liked at all, but he gained a lot. They did new polls now. He gained a lot of momentum because he did seem he's normally looking weird and crazy and this and that and saying crazy stuff. And none of that came up. And he kind of just seemed normal, even though he was lying and blah blah blah. He seemed normal, and so I think he gained a little bit more. I think he gained some points with some of the undecideds. I think those people
He
that
didn't
were
look normal
maybe
to me. He didn't look
yeah,
normal at
well, we're
all. He didn't
different.
look
We're
normal.
different. We're different. I'm thinking
Yeah, but
undecided because if you're undecided at this point, you got to be kidding. So if you're undecided or independent, he seemed just like a regular average guy too. Anyway,
hey, and
I'm
I'm gonna
glad. I'm
put a
glad it was
link to our
done.
undecided video somewhere up there, up in the. So
Yeah, the
just
undecided guys, you got to go
take a
watch
look
that
at
one.
that video as well. But you guys know how to find us on Polychicks
Yeah.
on YouTube, two Polychicks on Facebook, Instagram, Gmail, and Twitter
Mhm.
or X. So
X.
give us a shout. Text us if you know us personally and
Yeah.
let us know what you think.
Okay. Bye,
Okay.
guys.
Bye guys.